And hello, fellow gamers. I am back yet again. This time I'm playing Cybermorph on the Atari Jaguar. And this is on a system that maybe you never heard of. And there's a reason for that, and that's because it was released in the early 90s. It was up against competition from, at the time, the 3DO, the Sega CD, and let's see what else was in there. The PlayStation was like a year or two later, and the Saturn was on the way. The 32X, I think, had either just come out or was about to come out. And so, and then of course the Super NES was still around, and so was the Genesis. And so there was a hell of a lot of video game competition in those days. And this system didn't see a lot of attention. And there was a few big reasons for that. Number one, it was expensive. Number two, it was difficult to get. It was not widely stocked. And number three, there wasn't a lot of games for it, and that was mainly because, well, what happens to a game system that is difficult to program for? Nobody programs for it, so it dies. And that's exactly what happened with the Jaguar. Let's see if I can start the game, and I'll blab about this some more. So it asks me for select destination. Okay, so I can pick planets here. Access code 1008. Is that like my password that I can put in later? Anyway, I don't know really what to do here, so I'll just pick the one that it gave me by default. Pause. A. So pause allowed me to start the game, but to get past the title screen, but not to go any further. Okay, Autobahn briefing. It says use the speed of the T-Griffin to round up all supply pods laying abandoned in the valleys. Avoid kamikaze patrols. They ram you when you get near them. Okay, so round up all the supply pods in the valleys. I think I can handle that. And maybe that's what they look like. Like a lot of the early 3D systems, this system does not have an analog joystick on its controller. It's still got a D-pad. And that's going to be the first of many times that voice is going to say that to me. Look about stuck on the wall. Get off the damn wall. Analog joysticks for 3D systems did not come until the Nintendo 64, which I think was a major help. Controls for this are kind of skittish. They're very sensitive. I need to slow down. Okay, so I see I got throttle meter in the bottom left. Now, one thing you're probably immediately noticing about this is that the 3D kind of sucks. And that's to be expected with this being one of the first consoles with 3D hardware acceleration built into it. The draw distance is not very far. By the time that I can actually see something rendered, it's practically in my face. And God, I'm just trying to maneuver a little bit. See, this is where an analog joystick would be really helpful for this, because I'd be able to steer just a little bit to the right instead of all the way to the right. Now, at the time that this system was released, there was actually two systems in development. The Atari themselves was basically floundering at the time. They were still trying very hard to recoup the success that they had had in the late 70s and early 80s with the Atari VCS and the 2600. And they never really resumed that level of success again. They tried with the Atari 5200 in the early 80s and then the 7800 in the mid to late 80s. And they were somewhat vaguely successful. They were also making computers along that time, so in parallel with the 2600 and the 5200 and the 7800, they were also making computers based on similar technology. So they also had the Atari 400 computer, the Atari 800, and then a succession of computers that were variations on that technology, like the Atari 1200 and things of that nature. And those saw, again, lukewarm success. After that, they started making the Atari ST series of computers, which had fairly good success in Europe, but not really here. And so around about the time that the Atari STs were in their middle age, Atari R&D started working on a new video game console to once again try and get themselves back into the gaming arena. And so they had two consoles in development. One was called the Panther and one was called the Jaguar. And I believe that the Panther was going to be a 32-bit system, and the Jaguar was going to be a 64-bit system. And it was seen at some point during development that the Panther it just wasn't going to make a big enough impact, and it wasn't going to last long enough to really do anything for Atari. So they scrapped that and went all in with the Jaguar, which of course became the Jaguar. And so that's what we have here. Now, when they say 64-bit, this is not really a 64-bit system. How they got that is the internal hardware of the Jaguar is composed of multiple different CPUs that can be working in parallel on different tasks. And I think there's like two of them, primarily. And they are 32 bits apiece. And so Atari Marketing added the 32 and the 32 together to get 64. So, yeah, nice bit of lying right there. And then in Atari's marketing for this system, they pushed that even more by using their slogan, which was, "Do the math," by saying, well, our system is 64 bits and the Super NES is 16, so therefore ours is automatically a better system, and, horse shit like that. And on the subject of bits and specs and that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, you can have the best, most powerful hardware in the world. Doesn't matter for shit if there's no good software for it. It really does not matter. Conversely, you can have a system that is dramatically underpowered, like, say, the Atari 2600. But if it has great games for it, it'll succeed. And you would think that the hardware manufacturers would learn this, and they gradually are. It's still taken them a while, but even today, Sony and Microsoft are like having dick measuring contests, saying, well, oh, my system does 1 teraflop, and my system does 2 teraflops, and they're saying all this stuff like it matters, and it's kind of infuriating, to be honest. Because yes, good hardware can mean good software, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's not a guarantee. Another example of a system that was technically impressive but difficult to program for is the Sega Saturn. And that may be another system that you've never heard of, again, for good reason. There were games made for it where excellent programmers were able to rein in that beast, and they were able to get some really impressive stuff coming out of it. One of those games was Panzer Dragoon. But few and far between really truly impressive games for the Saturn and for this system. And so they died. Whereas other systems that were technically less powerful, like the Sony PlayStation, was technically, well, maybe it was about on par with the Saturn, but it was easier to program for. It was a simpler architecture. And so, of course, it sold like gangbusters, and the rest is history. I'm actually kind of surprised that this controller is working as well as it does, because I didn't test it before starting the stream, which is, a really bad idea. But it seems to be working perfectly. I see another one of those things. I need to sweep back around and get that. I think those are the things that I'm supposed to be getting, because, it said the flavor text talked about the things in the valleys, and this is a valley. Yep, pods remaining 6 at the bottom, so that's what I'm supposed to do. Kind of getting the hang of this. I'm also noticing that that the controls are significantly less squirrely if I just slow the fuck down first. So compared to other systems at the time, I would say that the 3DO is more powerful than this system. It definitely had a bigger game library. It was definitely capable of higher polygon models, which translated to better looking games. But I'm also seeing other graphical effects going on here, like looks like maybe garage shading on the textures. And maybe that's just the texturing, or maybe that's the hardware doing it. But like you can see how that slope right there, how it's kind of like a gradient going up. And I think that's the hardware doing that. The N64 used a similar technique in Super Mario 64. Is that the exit? But the N64 used it for Mario's hat. Mario's hat is actually a bunch of solid color polygons, but then they used garage shading to give it the shading on the edges that it has, because it saved them some processing to do that. Holy shit, while I've been blabbing, everyone's been talking in the chat. Hang on, let me back up a bit here. Dormer was saying that the teacher, which was from the Atari marketing for the system, made it clear this was 64-bit, and I was dumb for even considering a 32-bit system. Yes, that's exactly the way they put it. They're like, you're retarded. If you're a man, you'll man up and get this system. It was such bullshit. It really was. Man 845 says, Jeremy, the last person who streams Atari Jaguar. Maybe. See, Man 845 says, guys, I have a $10 Amazon gift card, so got any cheap, good Game Boy games that I should get? And Jormore says, Link's Awakening. Good game. You're not going to find it on Amazon for $10, though. If you do, by some miracle, then grab that shit up. Because, yeah, that's a good game. Last I knew, that was going for, in the local used game shops, what was it, like $20-30? Something like that. Other good Game Boy games, let's see what else we got. Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, Tetris, which was the pack-in game. Cybermorph, by the way, was the pack-in game for the Jaguar, which is why it's so common, which is why I only paid $10 for it. Other good Game Boy games, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, same game. I actually played that on my channel if you want to check that out. Played the entire game. Let's see, Donkey Kong Land, 1, 2, and 3. So the first one's not called 1, it's just Donkey Kong Land. And other game. Well, let's look up at my wall of Game Boy game boxes. Let's see, Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Yellow, the game that's called just Donkey Kong, which was an excellent remake and extension of the original Donkey Kong. Kirby's Dream Land, Bonk's Adventure. Let's see. I've got some crap up there, that's for sure. And then it gets into Game Boy Color games. Now, when you say Game Boy games, do you mean original Game Boy Color, or Game Boy Advance? Because those are technically 3 different systems. So Drumore says he had a friend with a Saturn. I had a cousin. That's the only time I ever saw one. And he had a game called Rise of the Dragon, I think. It was a cool-looking game, but I never got to play it. It was Cyberpunk, and we were playing Shadowrun at the time. Rise of the Dragon was actually a Sega CD game. I could actually buy that locally because I've seen it in the shop. I think it was like $20. Jay Dormore says that they were playing the Shadowrun TRPG So I'm guessing you mean tabletop RPG. That's cool stuff. I and my close friends are actually into tabletop RPGs quite a bit, and Sean is one of those people. We meet once a week and play that stuff. It's very nerdy and very fun. See, Oddman845 says that he has Kirby, Tetris, and Donkey Kong already. Good, that's a good start. And he has a Game Boy Advance, so he can play all three, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, so that's good too. You have access to a very wide library. In that case, there is also the two Zelda Game Boy Color games, which are Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. If you only get one of those, I'd recommend Oracle of Seasons. It's a much better game than Ages. Much more fun, way less frustrating in my opinion. But if you get both of them, then you can trade data between them. So that's cool stuff. Let's see. Let me look back up at my wall. Also, let's see. Game Boy Advance. You can get Advance Wars, Metroid Fusion, Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Then there was Castlevania, Circle of the Moon. Castlevania, what was the one in the middle? Harmony of Dissonance, that was the second one. And Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, that's the third one. I haven't played that one yet, but I have it. I own it. Let's see, Metroid Zero Mission was on the Game Boy Advance, which that was a remake and extension of the original Metroid. Very well done, by the way. Wario Land 4 is on the Game Boy Advance. Excellent game. Wario Land 2 and 3 are on the Game Boy Color. Also very good games. Let's see. I'm kind of trying to steer you towards original games because I have several remakes of games across those systems. Like Super Mario Bros. Deluxe is a Game Boy Color game, but that's another remake and extension of the original Super Mario Bros. Drummer says, were there any Harvest Moons on the Game Boy Advance? I'm sure there were. I think Harvest Moon goes as far back as the Super NES. So there should have been at least one on there. Anyway, let's play some more game because the people watching on the recording are probably bored to death. So I'm going to go to whatever this is. Codex Briefing. Find the pods, grab them, and get out quick. So, same idea as the last one, I guess. Alright, so 7 pods to collect. Now, I didn't collect all the pods on the last level, but it still let me leave, and it still seemed like I was victorious, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Well done. See, now I got unused to the controls. See, nothing happens when you just hold down the fire button. Well, I mean, it shoots, but it doesn't keep shooting. So you have to keep pushing it. Well done. So this is like a pseudo 32-bit Easter egg hunt with things that are trying to kill you. Can I squeeze through there? Nope. Sorry if the game audio is a little quieter than what it usually is. It's intentionally this quiet because some of the sound effects in this game are actually very loud. So I try to balance the audio levels according to the loudest sound that the game produces. Ow. Let's go this way. Avoid the ground. Did she say look forward to the ground? I think she probably said to avoid the ground, I think. see what happens if I just go into the exit here. It says pods remaining 1, but maybe it'll still be okay like the last level. Oddman845 says I tried to write down as much as I could. Since I am recording this in parallel, you could always watch the recording later and pause it after I'm listing off a million games, like pause it after each one, write them down. Jormer says the green lady face reminds me of System Shock. I think I've heard that comparison before, but I've never played System Shock. Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Okay, so next level, Ennis. Like tennis, but without the T. And apparently there are mood rings in this level. And it says crucial weaponry pods that you must rescue. Shoot the Snatcher, who carry pods to the Vortex Towers. So this is a little bit more interesting than this is kind of like Defender, actually. Which is not surprising because Defender was a huge Atari game. Okay, good. I'm just now noticing the radar in the upper right, and I think that is going to be instrumental in me doing this.
Well done. Well done.
So now that I've got the hang of the controls for the most part, this actually isn't so bad. Then I swing into the thing and blow up. Yeah. Holy shit, that's game over. Well, I'm not stopping now. I want to play some more of that. These are the high scores that were already on the cartridge when I got it. Can I hit option? Because there's a button on the controller for option. Which, by the way, the controller for this giant hideous thing. Got all these buttons right here. And games would come with an overlay, like for an Intellivision game, that would overlay these buttons and tell you what they all do. And I don't have any overlays, so I have no idea what the buttons do in this game. Maybe nothing. I seem to be able to play the entire game, at least everything I've done so far, without using those buttons at all. So, actually, can I go back? I wanted to try a different level. Oh well. I'll do this.
Good luck. Well done.
So now that I'm actually using the radar, paying attention to what I'm doing here, this should actually go pretty fast. Those pods do indeed show up on the radar.
Well done.
That shit. Sometimes I still get the buttons mixed up. Because it's kind of weird. The A, B, and C buttons right here, which are A up here, then B, and then C. The A button is accelerate, and the C button is decelerate, whereas the B button is for firing. And I keep thinking that A is accelerate and B is decelerate, and going like this. And that's where I keep messing up. Jomer says DAC controller with a sunglass smiley face. So you saying I should deal with it? Is that what you're saying? I'm just messing with you. Oddman845 says you might as well use an Atari 2600 controller. Maybe with an adapter or something. I haven't actually investigated that. The controller port connector for the system is really weird too. If you've ever seen a 15-pin HD VGA connector on a PC, it's literally the same connector, except they're using it for input instead of video output. So it's really weird to see that number one, on a video game console at all, and number two, as on the front, as an input port rather than output. Hey, fucknut. Hey!
Well done.
Dude flew right up my ass. You can probably hear the buttons on the controller clicking.
Work.
They're yeah, they're very clicky. They're not mechanical. I think it's just because the controller is so old that the rubber domes inside the buttons are really stiff. Which, you know, normally a rubber dome being stiff is a good thing. Oh, power low. I'm about to blow up.
Good work.
This one.
Only one more.
Only one more, and yet it says pause remaining 4 down at the bottom. So I guess you're not required to collect all of them. That son of a bitch. Shit. I was looking over the chat. Oddman845 says that he's playing Sonic with an Atari 2600 controller. That's different. That's because the Atari 2600 9-pin port was somewhat of a standard in those days. And so you'll find that same port largely compatible amongst themselves on the Atari 2600, on the Atari 7800, the Sega Master System, the Sega Genesis, the MSX, the Amstrad CPC, and I think some other things that I'm leaving out. That was one of those emergent standards, as they're called, where it wasn't. It was never officially formalized or standardized. It was just invented by someone, maybe Atari with the 2600, and then everybody else just kind of picked it up. See, I'm not paying attention to the radar, and I really should. Oh shit!
Avoid the ground.
Avoid the ground, no shit.
Good work. Portal now open.
Portal now open, she says. Passing by the Tit Mountains there. See? Tit Mountains. I do like me some mountainous
Where
tits.
did you learn to fly?
Not in this game, obviously. Oh, Man845 says that it would be funny to plug an Atari 2600 controller into a Genesis. He doesn't have a Genesis, but his friend does. But he has 2 cartridges. Sean says that he tried plugging an Atari 2600 joystick into a Genesis, but it didn't work. The thing about that standard is, like I said, it's not 100% cross-compatible. And so what I've found is the extents of the stick on it reports a different value depending on the system. And so it may be that when you plugged it into the Genesis, that like if you tilted the stick all the way to the right, that that wasn't a high enough number for the Genesis to recognize that it was actually being pushed. The other thing you have to worry about is the Genesis takes 3 and 6 button controllers, whereas the Atari 2600 has just 1 button, and that button might be mapped to any of the 3 on the Genesis controller or none of them. Okay, so now I'm going to pick a different level than I've done before. Let's try this one. See, Grizz Madre briefing. Vital medical supplies await collection on the roads. The medics are all imprisoned. Free them, recover the supplies, and beware the sea pirates. Okay. Well, I like that there's variation in the gameplay and the levels. They're not all just Easter egg hunts. But I'll still follow the radar. Presumably this is going to lead me to an imprisoned medic. Wait, where did it go? Okay, I guess maybe that was what I was supposed to do. I think the green skull dudes are ones that have captured something.
Good work.
Yep. You're not getting this one, Dick. Roaming over the frozen yogurt plains here. Drop it. Drop it. Ow, ow, fuck, fuck. Oh, you mother tit. Get back here with that. There. I picked up some kind of energy recharge. Okay, where's the next one? There's one.
Well done.
There is a little bit of auto-aiming in this, which is kind of nice, since there's no crosshairs. Oh, yay, stream's fucking up. It took a while to get there, but it eventually started doing it. Now they're fighting back. Oh, shit! Ow. Okay, sorry guys, the stream was fucking up there, but it looks like it might be back now. I need to be paying attention to the thing. If you haven't figured this out by now, I'm not very good at flying games or shooting games, so I don't know why I decided to play this. Apparently, I'm getting some kind of items down there at the bottom. Maybe that's what the extra buttons do. Yeah, I should try pushing those. Oh, I can change the angle of the camera. Oh, there's crosshairs. Okay, so you can go into first-person mode. Ow! And then you can blow yourself to shit, because you forgot what button to push. Anyway, that's that. Kind of want to give this another shot. The option? What does option do? Okay, use up and down on the controller to select button functions. Use left and right. You can change the controller configuration. Fire reverse. So maybe I can change the buttons to actually do what I think they're supposed to do. Let's see, is there an option for... So I'm looking for one that has... there we go. That's what I want. Ugh. Man, stream's really fucking itself to hell. Let's see, Sean says he has trouble with Star Fox, too much going on, and I couldn't tell what I needed to avoid, shoot, and collect. Although, yeah, Star Fox does look similar to this game, but it's a different kind of gameplay, because I would classify Star Fox as a rail shooter, in that you're flying in a straight line down a tube the whole time, basically. Whereas this is more like a free roaming shooter. Star Fox does have the disadvantage of the simple fact that, like you said, you can't tell what you need to avoid, shoot, or collect. You can't go back in Star Fox because you're always moving forward, whereas in this you can always turn around and go back. Star Fox 64 is a combination of the two, where parts of a level may be a rail shooter and then it'll switch into a free roaming shooter. Some levels are just free roaming. Try this planet. Okay, Capital. Take your time in Capital to find all these scattered pods. Use detonators to destroy buildings quickly. Okay, so this is another Easter egg hunt thing, I think. Oh my god, stream. You buttbag stream. I see, now I'm used to the controls the way they were. Yeah. Okay, so I guess maybe I have to use bombs to blow those open. Maybe I can just fly into it. Nope! Alright. I need to get bombs. I don't think you can destroy those. They're part of the landscape. Energizing, okay. That's how you make yourself undead. Or perhaps less dead, because undead is actually a thing. Ah, shit. Apparently I need... What? Did she just say shit? Apparently, oh, son of a... I just got ran over by the supply ship. Jesus. That shouldn't happen. Man, hardcore stream fucking. Ow. Okay, well, I think that's as good a reason to end this as any, so... thanks for watching, tuning in for this. If you want to be notified the next time that I'm live streaming, there's two ways to be notified. You can either subscribe to me and turn on the little bell thing on the YouTube app or the desktop site. or you can follow me on Twitter, because every time I'm about to do a live stream, I send out a Twitter notification, and you can find a link to my Twitter profile on my YouTube channel page. So I'll be doing more of this soon. I've got 2 more Jaguar games to do, so I'll probably be playing those on my next 2 streams. So see you then.